You know that feeling, right? You're deep into a story, totally invested, and then bam, you hit a plot hole, something that just doesn't add up, that contradicts the rules of its own world. It can totally pull you out of the experience. Well, today, we're tackling what might just be the oldest and highest stakes plot hole of all time. It's a paradox buried in the ancient Hebrew texts that honestly looks like a complete and total narrative collapse.
So let's just get right to it. The entire problem boils down to this single question. Can an eternal, unbreakable promise from God exist at the same time as an ironclad divine curse when they directly contradict each other? I mean, it seems impossible, right? It's a paradox that should just break the entire story.
But here's the thing. To really appreciate how brilliant the solution is, we first have to feel the full weight of the problem. And we're talking about a genuine contradiction here, one that stood for 600 years and looked completely, utterly unsolvable. And here it is, laid out plain and simple. On one side, you have this incredible promise made to King David, that his dynasty, his throne, would last forever. But on the other side, you have this incredibly specific and harsh curse declaring that his royal line would be permanently cut off. They can't both be true. Or can they?
So where in the world did this problem come from? Well, our story kicks off around 600 BC. We're in the final, chaotic days of the Kingdom of Judah. The superpower of Babylon is breathing down their necks, and sitting on the throne is a king who's about to make a catastrophic mistake. And that king's name was Jehoiakim. And let me tell you, this guy was not a great leader. The historical record paints a pretty grim picture. He was basically a puppet king put there by Egypt. He squeezed his own people with insane taxes just to build himself fancy palaces. He was all in on idol worship. And when the prophet Jeremiah shows up with a message from God, Jehoiakim not only persecutes him, but in this incredible act of defiance, he literally takes the scroll with the prophecy on it and burns it piece by piece.
And because of that, the judgment comes down hard. Through Jeremiah, God delivers this absolutely devastating verdict against the king. He will have no one to sit on the throne of David. That sounds pretty final, doesn't it? It's basically saying that's it. For your branch of the family tree, the crown stops here.
But oh, it gets worse. Of course it does. After Jehoiakim dies, his son, Jehoiachin, takes over. He lasts all of 3 months before he's captured and dragged off to Babylon, and the curse that's pronounced on him, well, that's the final nail in the coffin for the entire monarchy.
Listen to this wording from Jeremiah. It says, "Record this man as childless, a man who will not prosper, for no man of his descendants will prosper, sitting on the throne of David." Now that phrase, "record this man as childless," should make you pause, because we know from other historical records that Jehoiachin actually had biological sons. So, what on earth does that mean?
It means that childless here wasn't a biological term, it was a legal one. This set up what's often called the blood curse. Think of it as a formal, permanent disinheritance. Even though Jehoiachin might have kids, they were legally stripped of any and all right to the throne. The new rule was simple and absolute. If you have the physical blood of Jehoiachin in your veins, you are forever banned from being king. Full stop.
And you know what? This curse actually held. For 600 long years, the throne of David sat empty. The monarchy was just gone. The key to breaking this curse, it turns out, was hidden in plain sight, tucked away in 2 of the most skipped-over lists in the entire New Testament.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. We're given 2 different family trees for Jesus. The one in Matthew's Gospel traces Jesus' line back through David's son Solomon. This is the official, legal, royal line of succession. The problem? It runs straight through the cursed King Jehoiachin. But then Luke's Gospel gives us a different line, one that goes through another one of David's sons, Nathan, who was never a king. This line completely avoids Jehoiachin, making it a biologically clean line, but it has no legal claim to the throne. And that, right there, is the ultimate catch-22. To be the true king, the Messiah, has to have the legal right to the throne. But that entire line is cursed. If he's a biological son in that line, he's disqualified. But if he comes from the other, clean line, he's got no legal claim. You see the problem? It looks like a perfect, inescapable trap.
Unless there was a loophole, a legal workaround so precise it could solve the whole thing. And this is where the story introduces the virgin birth, not just as a stunning miracle, but as an absolute legal necessity. It's the one key that fits this impossible lock.
All right, let's just break down how this works. It's like a 3-step solution. First, you have Joseph. He is a direct descendant of the royal, legal line, the cursed one.
By adopting Jesus, he passes on the legal right, the title deed, if you will, to the throne. In ancient law, an adopted son got all the inheritance rights. Second, you have Mary. She is a descendant of David through that other, clean line of Nathan, so she provides the actual physical blood of David. And third, the loophole, the virgin birth. Because Jesus isn't Joseph's biological seed, he doesn't inherit the blood curse that was passed down through Jehoiachin's physical descendants.
It is just an incredibly elegant solution. It perfectly threads the legal needle. Through Joseph, Jesus becomes the rightful, legal heir to the throne. And through Mary, he's a true biological descendant of David. He gets the legal title without ever setting off the tripwire of the biological curse. But this whole thing, it wasn't just about fixing a tricky plot hole. This clever solution was actually the way to fulfill a much bigger, much older promise about an entirely new kind of king and an entirely new kind of kingdom.
Let's circle back to Jeremiah for a second, the very same prophet who delivered that awful curse, because shortly after he pronounced judgment, God gave him this promise: I will raise up for David a righteous branch. Now that imagery is so important. The royal family tree had basically been chopped down, leaving just a stump. It looked completely dead.
But what does a branch or a shoot do? It signals new life, a fresh start, growing right out of what seemed to be dead. The point was never to just put the old, failed, corrupt political system back on its feet. The goal was to launch something totally new, a kingdom that was defined by righteousness, not by politics and power grabs.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, it all clicks into place. The judgment was very real. No physical son of Jehoiachin ever sat on the throne again. But the promise to David was also kept. An heir who had both the legal right and a clean bloodline did appear. That massive tension between judgment and promise was resolved perfectly without watering down either one.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. We started this whole thing with what looked like a clumsy, story-breaking plot hole. But once we found the right key, understanding ancient law and biology and prophecy, it transformed into this display of incredible, mind-bending precision. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other so-called contradictions in these ancient texts aren't mistakes at all, but are actually just complex puzzles, waiting for us to find the right key?